In the last episode, we saw Ning fighting for his freedom and finally getting the chance to showcase his skills, leaving everyone amazed. But things take a wild turn when he ends up battling a girl who's not just any girl, she's actually a snake. Their fight gets intense, but suddenly they're both caught in a trap set by two shady men who've been watching the whole thing unfold. Ning tries to warn her, but she gets stuck badly. Meanwhile, Ning himself faces one of the men, who turns out to be a beastly figure. The girl, also known as the Sky Snake, tells Ning that this guy is Ironwood Zan, a late-stage Xiantian expert. Basically, a total powerhouse. She advises Ning to escape, which he doesn't like, but seeing the beast's size, he reluctantly agrees. After all, he's just a teenager still in training. Sky Snake, however, is in deep trouble. Ironwood Zan demands she surrender and become his spirit slave, but she boldly refuses. Ning, though hesitant earlier, hates seeing this unfold. He tries to step in and help, but that's when his Uncle Bai shows up. Uncle Bai scolds Ning, saying anger won't solve anything, and his energy is too limited to take on such a fight. Ning gets an idea and asks Uncle Bai to save the girl since he's much stronger, but Bai also decides to retreat. It seems like running is their family's go-to plan. But Ning doesn't give up. He starts focusing on the physics of air momentum, which helps him tap into the power of the fire and water lotus. Uncle Bai, clearly surprised, watches but doesn't interfere. Ning keeps working on creating this fierce energy. Suddenly, a wolf, attracted by the energy, charges at Ning, but as it crosses the line, the lotus energy tears it apart. Pretty impressive, right? Meanwhile, Ironwood Zan continues pressuring Sky Snake to surrender, threatening to destroy her body and soul if she doesn't. But she stands firm. Frustrated, Ironwood Zan suddenly senses powerful energy nearby. He and his assistant decide to check it out, leaving Sky Snake behind. When they reach the forest, they find Ning, fully focused, creating this incredible energy. Ironwood Zan is completely taken aback by Ning's energy, but he doesn't want to jump into conclusions yet, so he casually throws a stone at Ning to test him. The stone shatters into pieces instantly. Zan brushes it off like it's no big deal and steps it up by tossing an entire tree at Ning. Ning senses it coming and, with one punch, reduces the tree to splinters. Now, that shocks Zan, though he tries not to show it. Zan tries to act all tough, saying Ning will never surpass him, but Ning isn't buying it. He straight up warns Zan that his time is up and that the heavens themselves have already decided his fate. Ning's like, this is just the beginning of my power, dude. In the next episode, we see Ning standing between the forces of fire and water, creating the legendary Crimson Bright diagram of the 9 heavens. Zan is forced to admit to himself that Ning is on another level. Zing has mastered this technique to such an insane degree that no one, not even Zan, can compete. Zan is rattled, but his assistant jumps in with a plan. He reminds Zan that Ning is on the verge of a breakthrough, his weakest moment, and convinces him to attack. Desperate, Zan goes for it. But that's a big mistake. As soon as the beast charges, Ning unleashes a small burst of his fire and water energy, completely obliterating it. Zan is left just standing there, absolutely stunned. Realizing he's got no chance, he drops to his knees and begs for mercy. He's like, I can see your power, but I can't even begin to understand it. But Ning's not falling for it. After everything Zan's done, Ning isn't about to just let him off the hook. He decides Zan doesn't deserve to live, no matter how much he begs. Ironwood Zan, even after being completely beaten, has the guts to try justifying himself. He goes on about how the path of cultivation requires letting go of emotions and admits he's made mistakes, but only because it was necessary to reach ultimate power. Ning is just standing there, stunned by his audacity, but he knows this is what happens when someone walks a twisted path. Without hesitation, Ning decides Zan's story ends here. Even as Zan begs for his life, Ning finishes him off. And the nerve of this guy! His final request is to be sent to heaven so he can relax with his maidservants. Seriously, Ning makes sure he gets nothing close to that. Afterward, Uncle Bai approaches, and Ning asks if his parents followed the same emotionless cultivation path Zan mentioned. Bai explains that everyone has their own way of gaining power. Zan's path was driven by greed and violence, but technically it was still a path to strength. Ning, however, is different. He has integrity and makes his own choices. Ning doesn't seem totally satisfied with the explanation, but lets it go. Later, Ning runs into Sky Snake Girl again. She thanks him for saving her, but of course she has to throw in that she's not bowing to him or calling him her master. Rude, right? Ning claps back, saying he doesn't want to be her master anyway and can't imagine having a snake as a pet. That stings, and she snaps back that she's not just a snake, but a spirit beast. Ning brushes it off, saying he only helped because Zan was awful, not because he wanted to save her. She gets mad and demands they go their separate ways, and Ning is like, fine by me. But plot twist, Sky Snake Girl catches up with them again. She insists on staying, saying she needs to repay Ning's kindness before leaving. Ning's just standing there thinking, how did I end up stuck with such a dramatic snake? Before they can start bickering again though, Ning's maidservants point out smoke in the distance. It's coming from the Chunkeo tribe. They race over and find the place in ruins. Fires everywhere, people screaming, and bodies on the ground. Ning is in shock, but Uncle Bai immediately senses a serpent demon's presence. They eventually find Chunkeo, lifeless on the ground. Ning is heartbroken, and he remembers when his mother told him that after killing the serpent demon's son, revenge was bound to happen. She had also told him though to see both sides, that while the demon was vengeful, innocent people were caught in the crossfire. Back then, Ning didn't fully get it, but now seeing Chunkeo dead, it all makes sense. Overwhelmed with grief, Ning starts laughing, a dark, unsettling laugh that shocks everyone around him. But he's already working on a plan. He picks up Chunkeo's body, turns to Sky Snake Girl, and tells her it's time to pay him back. Together, they bury Chunkeo, and Ning quietly prepares himself for what's coming next. Uncle Bai tries to calm Ning down, telling him it's not his fault that things turned out this way. He explains that the path Ning is on demands sacrifices, and knowing your limits is part of growing stronger. But Ning isn't having it. He argues that no matter how strong you get, there's always someone stronger who can take away what matters most. Bai agrees, but points out that if you want to protect the people and things you care about, you have to become the strongest. Still fuming, Ning asks Bai how many chances they'd have of beating Serpent Wing in a fight right now. Bai's answer? 0. Frustrated, Ning asks how long it would take to train enough to beat him, and Bai says 3 years. Ning, of course, isn't about to wait that long. Bai offers to take his place and fight Serpent Wing, but Ning refuses, saying, if I created the problem, it's on me to solve it. Sky Snake, who's been listening to the whole thing, finally jumps in with a suggestion. She says there's a way to deal with Serpent Wing that doesn't involve 3 years of training. According to her, Serpent Wing has stayed by the lake for thousands of years because of Brightheart Island, which lies at the center of the Lake of Serpent Wing. On this island, there's a time tunnel that leads to the retreat of the immortal Suihua. She explains that Suihua was a legendary figure who lived for thousands of years and survived countless disasters without dying. He strayed from the teachings of the gods because he believed true power didn't come from them. If Ning can find the time tunnel and tap into Suihua's knowledge, he might gain the strength he needs to take down Serpent Wing without spending years training. Uncle Bai agrees with Sky Snake's suggestion, but can't help wondering how she knows so much about Suihua's retreat. That's when she admits something surprising. Serpent Wing himself had asked her to locate the site. Now, it seems like she's spilling secrets, and yeah, it does feel like betrayal. But hey, she made a promise to help Ning no matter what, so cut her some slack for now. Sky Snake reveals more. Serpent Wing doesn't have noble intentions. The cave of Suihua is not to hold immense fortune, and when she and her companions entered it before, they suffered heavy losses. She warns Ning that the place is dangerous and gives him the choice to enter or not. Unsurprisingly, Ning doesn't even hesitate. He agrees immediately. As a member of the Ji clan, he feels it's his responsibility to protect others. Uncle Bai tries hard to stop him, but Ning just won't budge. Left with no choice, Bai decides to report the situation to the governor as soon as possible. With Sky Snake at his side, Ning reaches Brightheart Island and is surprised to find no sign of Serpent Wing. Sky Snake leads him to the cave entrance and, after a brief farewell, leaves. Moments later, Ning steps inside the mysterious cave. As he explores, he finds a note etched on the wall. To claim the treasures within, you must pass 3 tests. But before he can even process that, golden seeds fall from above, merging to form massive metal beasts, security guards of the cave. These guards loudly announce that anyone entering without authorization will be punished. Seeing their numbers, Ning briefly considers retreating, but of course, that's not an option, so he charges in with his sword. However, he quickly realizes these guards are made of liquid metal. Every time he cuts them, they simply reform. To make things worse, they don't have any visible weak points. Even Ning's Lotus Fire energy is useless against them. He soon figures out that the guards are being controlled by an external force, and the only way to win is to keep fighting until that force runs out of energy. But here's the catch. Ning's body has limits. While the guards can keep reforming, he can't keep swinging forever. Exhausted but determined, Ning keeps going, his relentless effort catching the eye of a hidden stone gorilla watching from the shadows. Meanwhile, Ning's parents are deeply concerned about him. They've heard about his sudden awakening of the Water Fire Lotus power in just one night, something almost unheard of. Not to mention, he's already practiced the Crimson Bright diagram of the 9 heavens up to the innate realm. His potential might just be the highest in Ji clan history. Ning's father, Yi Chuan, tries to reassure his wife, insisting she's being overly protective. He believes Ning is destined for greatness and simply needs to prove himself. But at the same time, Yi Chuan notices something unusual. He doesn't recognize the Jade Sword Ning has been carrying. Back in the cave, Ning is lying on the ground, completely drained from the first challenge. He can't help but wonder how much worse the next two tests will be. Part of him thinks death might actually be easier at this point, but he refuses to give in to fear. Instead, he decides to rest, recover his energy, and eat before taking on whatever comes next. Uncle Bai heads to Yishuan to update him about Jean Ning. Yishuan, calm as ever, believes Ning's journey is all part of his destiny, and everything happening now is a result of Ning's choices and actions. Bai, however, sees it differently. He insists that Ning isn't just talented, he's extraordinary. According to Bai, Ning's fortune is something beyond what an ordinary person could ever hope for. The lotus flower may seem simple, but in the right hands, it can unleash devastating power with fire and water. That's Ning's potential, and Bai is confident he'll succeed. Yishuan listens but stays focused on the bigger picture. He points out that the battle is far from over and makes it clear that he fully believes Ning will make it back. Meanwhile, in the cave, Ning is working hard to refine his powers when a green-eyed gorilla suddenly appears. The gorilla announces that Ning must fight him as part of the third test. Confused, Ning wonders what happened to the second test. The gorilla explains that after waiting thousands of years, the guardian of the second test has passed away, leaving the gorilla to take over. Ning accepts the challenge, albeit reluctantly. The gorilla surprisingly gives Ning a bit of a break, explaining that Ning doesn't need to kill him, just hurt him to pass the test. The fight begins and Ning starts by attacking with his fire force, but it has no effect. He switches to his water force, which also doesn't seem to harm the gorilla. However, the gorilla is so impressed by Ning's determination and skill that he becomes emotional. In a surprising turn, the gorilla bows before Ning and declares him his master, urging him to live up to his blessing and continue cultivating his power. Ning, completely shocked, doesn't understand why the gorilla is surrendering when he hasn't even defeated him yet. Unsatisfied, Ning insists on finishing the fight properly. Thinking quickly, he comes up with a plan. He lures the gorilla in, holds his hand as if in trust, and then uses the hand to land a decisive attack. This fulfills the requirement of the test, officially making Ning the winner. As soon as the challenge is complete, the gorilla transforms into light and vanishes, leaving Ning both relieved and a little bewildered by the encounter. Ning heads deeper into the cave, now that he's got the permit, and is totally blown away by how huge everything is. The mat in the center really catches his eye. It's impressive, like 300 meters long, making him think a giant must have prayed here. Shaking off his thoughts, Ning sits on the mat and starts meditating. Out of nowhere, he senses something strange. When he turns around, there's a giant beast staring at him. The beast introduced itself as the spirit of a magical object connected to Suihua. Ning panics for a second, thinking this might be another test, but the beast says it doesn't even know how Ning passed the last one. Instead, it congratulates him and tells him he's now one of the 5 masters of the place. The beast goes on to explain that this cave was originally created for giants, who were the first masters here. Suihua came later and was so skilled and powerful that he collected a ton of rare treasures. But of course, Ning isn't allowed to take any of those treasures. That annoys him, so he insists he's the new master now. The beast sets him straight, saying Ning doesn't have power, but it's pretty small compared to what's needed. Worse, he can't even boost or enhance it using the stuff in this cave. However, there are some relics here that Ning can explore. To help, the beast gives him something called the Amulet of Faith. It's a symbol of his new role as the guardian monk of the site, and also gives him access to other sanctuaries in the region. Ning takes the amulet, but he's not happy about it. He didn't go through all this trouble just to get stuck as a guardian. He wants to train and grow stronger, but the beast says it can't really help him much. Only the original masters could have done that. Frustrated, Ning complains about how he spent years with Suihua and still doesn't know anything important. Finally, the beast throws him a bone. It mentions a secret sword technique that perfectly fits Ning's style. The catch? It takes a ton of mental strength to pull off. The good news is that based on Ning's past battles, he's almost strong enough to give it a shot. Hearing this, Ning finally feels a little better. The beast may not have been super helpful, but this bit of info is exactly what he needed to keep moving forward. The second technique is called the Lesser Thousand Sword Formation Technique. In this technique, 9 formations merge together to form a single sword spell. What Ning is learning now is just the first level of the technique. To cast a spell for 2 swords, he'd need to reach the second level. 3 swords would require the third level, and the ultimate spell involving all 9 swords is the final level. Reaching that level is said to shake the sky, earth, and everything in between. However, Ning's current mental strength makes it almost impossible for him to reach the level of 9 swords. But as always, Ning is determined, and a bit reckless, wanting to master it all. The beast gives him an important hint. The key to the Lesser Thousand Sword Formation technique lies in 1,000 small symbols. Ning must carefully observe these symbols and not be tricked by their appearance. Ning has to become powerful enough for the symbols to even show themselves, and he must promise to keep this secret. Of course, Ning is stubborn and sets his sights on mastering the technique in an unrealistically short time. After all, would he even be the hero of an anime if he didn't go for the impossible? If you're excited to see how Ning handles this challenge, make sure to tune in for the next episode. Ning's journey is far from over, and he needs your support to keep going. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel to stay updated with our recaps. Thanks for watching.